So I work in theater mostly. I've lived in Burlington, I think since right around the beginning of 2012. So we were living in New York City before this. She got a job at Elon, moved down here. We both moved down here. But before that, sort of all over the place with working in theater is really nomadic. I started out Philadelphia, moved to Easton, Pennsylvania, went to Ohio University where I met her, then Santa Fe to work at the Santa Fe Opera. I've been back there 5 summers because it's a summer job. Louisville, Kentucky for a few months, and then New York for 6 years, 5, 6 years, something like that. Yeah, so I got into prop making in a kind of roundabout way. I was good at carpentry in my high school. I took shop classes, learned how to use all the tools and draft and all that. Went to school, went to undergrad, first as an engineer, but then didn't really like how technical it was. I wanted more hands-on stuff. And I was into film. They didn't have a film department, and rather than transferring somewhere with a film department, I just went into the theater department and just stayed there and basically fell in love with it. And I was doing scene design and then working as a stagehand after that, but doing more and more carpentry because that's what I was good at and what I could get paid to do. And I sort of fell into prop carpentry, which is building all the furniture and the wooden things for stage, metal, welding, that sort of thing. So that kept me employed fairly regularly. And then I was able to start picking up all the other cool and interesting parts of prop making, like the sculpting and the foam and molding and casting and still working on fabric and sewing. I'll get there. But so now I work at Triad Stage in Greensboro as a props master. So I do, well, I don't really have time for hobbies now with the kids, but I do like prop building on the side, and then my day job is sort of supplying all the props for the theater shows, which involves paperwork and meetings and keeping people happy and buying and all that sort of thing. So I get to build maybe like 1 or 2 things per show, but usually I'm just getting other people to build things. But I have built some cool things in the past, and still to the day. Right now we have a show running, The Price by Arthur Miller, and there's a big backless daybed downstage that I got to build from scratch with the upholstery and the woodwork and all that sort of thing, because their theater is, the way it is, the sight lines are really bad, and if you put a couch with the back on stage, then it blocks everybody's view. So every show has a backless couch. So every show I end up building a couch with it. So what is a prop? This is a show we did called Death Trap, and I took a picture of the bare stage with just the scenery and a picture of the stage with all the props on. So the props are all the furniture, rugs, curtains, the posters on the wall, everything hanging on the wall, as well as all the actual things that everybody uses. There's lamps, pillows. We actually built the fireplace too. And then basically everything that the actors touch by hand that's not a costume and not the actual scenery. So any food that they eat, any paperwork that they have, if they have a briefcase and it's filled with papers, we do all the papers inside in the briefcase. So there's a lot of things that encompass props, and I'm responsible for all of them. But with building props, there's a lot of skills, and I don't necessarily know all of these things, but I kind of have to know when to use them or when to find people to use them. So I could do anything from carpentry, metalworking, welding, plastic fabrication, vacuum forming. I spent this last summer building a vacuum former for our shop because you can buy them, but they're really expensive. And I just built a small one using the Harbor Freight vacuum pump and just making every other part. And it was one of these projects where it's like, if I'm slightly under budget on a show, I'll buy a couple hose parts, and if I'm under budget on another show, I'll buy the vacuum pump. And like little by little, I eventually had everything. And then the summer, when we're just doing maintenance and we don't have shows going on, I was able to actually construct the whole thing and put it together.
Did you use a shop vac?
No, it's a vacuum pump and then a tank. So you vacuum out the tank, and that holds a lot of vacuum. And then so when you open up the tank, it sucks it down really quick.
So you use 2 mil thermoplastic?
I've used 16th inch, and it starts getting a little tricky after that.
And what do you use to heat it up?
The heating elements went to the Value Village and picked up a toaster oven and took it apart and put it in a frame. So at some point I should bring it down because I put it on wheels so I could wheel it around. But I built it. I was thinking we would do it. We have a show in Christmas, and one scene all these children are running around with these little lanterns, and children with little lanterns break them really easy. And I think they broke almost all of them last year. So I thought this year I'll recreate them all out of plastic. Built this vacuum form to do that. I thought, okay, I have one project, and then I think I ended up using it for like every other show too because it's a really useful tool. So, but then also molding and casting, fabric and upholstery, so sewing bags, sewing pillows, all that sort of thing. Clay sculpting, foam carving, flexible foam. Paper crafts, graphics, stencils. We do we have to paint all the props too and decorate them. It's this whole mix. If you see the crate up here that I did, I've been working on this technique where you use your inkjet printer to print on, not print on the wood, but you basically print onto wax paper, and then you can just squeegee it right onto wood, and you get just whatever design on your computer straight onto a piece of wood. So it's really great for like the old-timey crates that have labels on them, rather than using like a sticker or trying to lay something out and hand painting it. It's a real quick kind of thing. And then we also do some electronics, some pneumatics. That's rare for the theater the theater of the size that I'm working at now, but some of the larger ones will do pneumatics. And remote control. We do some remote control. We get these little cheap little radio control things that like basically push a button and it triggers something, and then you could put it in whatever effect you need. We had one. It had to be a window shade that opened up by itself. So it was a little. You pull the window shade down, and the string is held in place, and then you press the button, and a little solenoid triggers, and it lets the window shade run back up. So it's this whole gag thing that we did. But that's kind of like the basics of prop building every day. But then we have all these other skills we have to know. Depending on the show, I've had to do anything from taxidermy to flower arranging, puppetry, plumbing. All those things up there might be called upon at any time, depending on what show I'm doing. So,
opening day.
Yeah, as a props maker, you never know what you're going to get, and because you're constantly making the magic happen, people start to just assume that you can always make the magic happen. Sometimes at work, people don't even worry about how things are going to get done. They're like, I know how we could do this. We'll tell Eric to do it. I solved the problem. So it's a whole lot of skills wrapped up, but so it makes the job really a lot of fun. So I have a few pictures of the props. And up here I have a lot of some props I've built. Most of the things end up at the theater, so I can't bring them around. And since I've started doing maker fairs. I'm like, I'm a prop maker, but I don't have anything, so I could tell you about it. So I've been making things just to kind of like display various techniques and things, and also just props that I want to have for myself. But I have some pictures of things that I've built too. This is a throne. This is actually one of the earlier pieces I did. It was for an opera version of Cinderella, and they had these laser cut letters. The whole set was sort of like a book that came to life, and so every prop or costume had words and letters on it. So the letters actually say Prince Charming, because it was Prince Charming's throne. And they had them laser cut, but they needed them on the back of the chair, and he was leaning back in it. So I had to figure out a way to attach them in a ring, make it basically look like it's floating, and withstand the force of him sitting in it every night. And this is for the Santa Fe Opera. And I've seen that this set has then moved. I've seen it at the Royal Opera in England, in an opera house in France, one in Denmark, and you can see the throne is still all together. So maybe some people are fixing it, but it seems to have held up pretty well. This is a giant 3-foot garden gnome that my wife and I actually worked on. This was for Lincoln Center Theater in New York. It was a fun project. They danced with it, they carried it around, so it needed to be really strong and withstand a lot of things. So we did foam coated in cloth mache, coated in epoxy, I think, to make this impervious little garden gnome. And then it's a giant cannon I built for Shakespeare in the Park. They were doing a World War I, All's Well That Ends Well. And one of the pieces was a cannon. And it needed to be adapted a little bit because they wanted to be sitting on parts of it, and cannons usually aren't built to be sat on or rode, so I had to sort of add a seat that kind of, at first glance, makes historical sense, but then you'll be like, why would you add a seat on a cannon? And it ended up, we couldn't keep it in stock because New York has, the rent's incredible, and you can't have giant warehouses anywhere, so you end up getting rid of a lot of things after a show, or only keeping the most important things. And this one was too big, but luckily my parents had come down to the city, and so we pushed it into the back of their van, and they brought it back to their farm on Pennsylvania, and they keep it in one of their barns with flowers in the barrel now. They were hippies back in the day and went to Woodstock, so they kind of like having that around. And then this is just a chandelier I made for Triad Stage, 7-foot diameter, a lot of crystals. Another throne I made for the Santa Fe Opera. And this was an interesting team project because I did the carpentry part of the throne, and then there were other crafters who were sculpting sort of relief sculptures that got attached in. So sometimes, like a lot of props is kind of working on your own, but a lot of times too, you'll do a team project and you kind of have to work with them and be like, all right, I'm needing a space this big, and you're gonna do this, and you need to place the screw in, and okay. And especially with like the electric props and things like that, because you might have somebody more adept at doing electrics and things.
So, especially with some of your bigger things, it seems as though we got so much the floor done over there, but maybe the chairs and the can. It seems like these things would have to collapse for the roadies to pack them up. Otherwise, they're very large and awkward spaces, that sort of thing. So, is that part of your design too, that they collapse and go apart, or?
No, like a lot of, I'm usually working at producing theaters that produce their own work, and so they have an in-house shop, and so the show kind of ends there, and then it goes away. But in terms of like something like that where it does travel, the scenery there is made to break down into giant chunks, but they're essentially getting shipping crates and filling up the shipping crate, and so figure out how to pack. I'm sure shipping is a lot. I've heard in the realm of like $70,000 just to ship a show somewhere. So my most important concern with building props is making sure it fits in the smallest doorway that I have to travel through. And in the case of the chandelier, that is one that collapses. I almost realized it too late. I'm like, wait a minute, this doesn't actually fit through any door, because our theater, you have to go through a single door. Like, every piece of scenery, every prop, everything has to fit through a single door. We don't have any sets of double doors leading into the theater. And so this one being 7 foot wide and about 5 feet tall would not fit through a door. So I built it so that the pole comes out, and then so this top ring just kind of drops down in, and all the crystals just kind of drape down in with it, and then you just have a giant bowl that you have to turn on its side and kind of carefully walk out. And you have somebody following behind you picking up all the crystals that you're dropping, because there's no way to keep all of them from coming unattached. But yeah, we do. There's a lot of sort of not just for the look of the prop, but this kind of backstage engineering. How are the stagehands going to handle the props? Where is the prop going to store? You know, you might build this like giant staff, like we had these staffs for Snow Queen, and really intricate work up top. And you can't just lean it against the wall when it's done. You have to like build a stand to hold it up, and a guard around it so people walking by don't bump into it and break it apart, because you don't have time to sort of build a new one for the next show. And then with my career, at least, and a lot of props people, we do a lot of non-theater stuff too, because of our strange mix of skills. I spent 2 or 3 seasons, 2 seasons, working for a company in New York that does holiday windows for like Macy's, Herald Square, Saks Fifth Avenue, Lord & Taylor, that sort of thing, which is a giant business. This company alone has a couple of dozens or even 100 people at the peak. They start designing them basically the January before Christmas, and they start bringing in tons of people to work as early as July, and just nonstop until Thanksgiving so that they could unveil these. So this was one of the pieces I did. It's a star-making machine. So each of these cylinders turned, and they had a window on one side, so you only saw what was in one cylinder at a time. And it was basically like, it started off with a Christmas ball that slowly broke apart and turned into a star at the end. It was the elves making stars, I guess. But it was one where they have a separate animatronic department who mechanize everything and control it, because every window has many different mechanized parts. So I would have to build it so that they could add the gears and sprockets underneath to turn it and keep it all in sync, and then run off the motor. And then, of course, lights on it as well. So, and then also this was for a trade show, and I did this ride in Burlington for a company called Prop Tarts. They were up in Glencoe Mill Village, and now I think she's somewhere else. But it was a 6 foot tall microscope in the shape of a logo of some scientific company, and they just set it up at their trade show booth. That's what they have. And then this is a crown I built. It was for a show, but it was more of a costume, I guess. It was out of metal, so the costume shop doesn't normally work in metal. They don't have the tools or the skills or that sort of thing, so they had me build it. And then this was, I've done some private commission work, and this was a guy who wanted a chest from Game of Thrones, because he had the dragon eggs, and in the first episode, the dragon eggs are in his chest, and he wanted this for his girlfriend. And I get a lot of emails, and most people, they don't know the price of getting props made. So you kind of tell them, and they're like, oh, okay. But this guy, as soon as I said the price, he's like, that's great. I'm like, I should have said a higher price. But I made it, and it worked out well. And had a lot of fun with it. I did charge too little, but in the end it was all right because I could put it on my blog. So at a certain point, I think it was around 2008, I've been working for a while, but I wanted to do something more. And I first approached Natalie and I said, are there any good prop making books out there? Because we know there's some from the 1980s. And there might be like a few smaller ones here or there, but they're, at least in schools, they're still using these older books from the 1980s, which are good, but they're talking about like hot melt vinyl, and it was past the days when prop makers used asbestos to build things, but it was very dated and didn't have anything new, and the photos were in black and white and all of this. So I thought, for whatever reason, I thought I could write a book about props. And I looked at what it would take to get a book deal, get it to publishing. And I kind of came back to, like, you should start a blog because then you practice writing, you build an audience, and then you have something to show the publisher. So I thought, okay, that'll be the first step. I'll start this blog. And these are just pictures of how the design has changed over the years. And it's a mix of my own projects and how-tos, and I also showcase like other people's work. I've done a few like interviews. I'm also interested in sort of the history of like prop making itself. So I'll go into the history of how people in the vaudeville era would build props, or what happened. How did people build props before you had power tools? How did people build props before you had silicone rubber balls and all this sort of thing? And so it's just a whole mix of things that I'm interested in. And almost right away, I started getting a good response from people in the industry, because another part of the reason I wanted to start the blog was just because there wasn't really anything out there specifically for theatrical prop making, but really any prop making. I would go online and you would find, maybe somebody built a cool thing in their house or something, but it's like the actual, in our industry, it's like nobody's talking about all this stuff. So I thought, I'll do this. I want to make a blog that I would want to read and go from there. And so a lot of other people started finding out about it, and they were interested in it because there wasn't anything out there. So it's like, oh, cool, now this is out here. I have like a lot of teachers, especially undergrad, they're like, oh, this is great. We could show this to my students, and they could look at it. And they're giving me ideas for classes, different projects to do, and that sort of thing.
So, Eric, is that a labor of love, or do you get any kind of, do you have advertising revenue?
It's mostly a labor of love. Yeah, I have ads on it. I do the Google ads. But I don't think, I might break even on like the hosting costs and the cost of getting a domain. I mean, there's certainly not money coming in. And it is, I will get into it a little bit. Oh, why blog? So part of it is, I did have this idea that I was going to eventually write the book. So the blog was like the labor of love because I'm building the audience. So no matter what happens, even if you don't buy the book, you still can go to the blog and get that for free. And I'm never going to charge people to read the blog or anything like that. So that's helped me build the audience, and it's helped me network with other props people. I'm a little bit socially awkward. Don't like talking in front of groups, but this way people can read things about me and get to know me first, and then if I go to a conference or something, well, I go, right, Eric, Hart, props, blog, that thing. And then it's kind of served as a way to attract people who need props built. There's a lot of people, because they Google things, I end up at the top of search engines for like how to build a 6-foot-tall champagne bottle, because I made one out in Santa Fe. And I made one because you can't buy them. And other people trying to buy them, they can't find a place to buy them, but they find my webpage and they're like, hey, can you build a 6-foot-tall champagne bottle? I'm like, no, because I don't have the 4x8 vacuum former that I used out in Santa Fe. Sorry. But you could ask them. And I think that, so they've been getting a lot of business building champagne bottles for parties around the country. And then, like I was saying before, recording and documenting the props world. A lot of our teaching is oral, it's tradition, it's one person teaching another person, and nothing's really written down, and you're always in danger of just losing a lot of this history as people age out of the business or leave the business. And it's only, and luckily with theater, because it's nomadic, people are always going to different theaters, and knowledge gets mixed and matched that way. And so when you're in the business for a day, you find out like, oh, hey, other people do things this way too, or, oh, I've heard that terminology before. And so this is kind of like a way to capture that before it gets lost. And then teaching grad who can say like, I got into props because I found your blog, because I was doing high school theater, and now, so I'm going to undergrad for a theater degree. I'm like, oh, that's great. I'm sorry you're not going to make any money in your life, but it's good for you. And then just to start conversations is another reason why I blog too. And we do the prop masters in the country and some outside the country. We all have a big email group, and so we have our own conversations internally about just the industry. What new materials have you found? What are the best practices for setting up a shop? What tools should we get next? But this is for a more sort of open audience. And so I've started to, one thing I've enjoyed doing lately is doing polls, like a Google form. And you do a poll and you can kind of poll everybody. One of the recent ones I did was on using live flame in theater. Because you hear a lot of things about live flame. I'm like, all right, let's poll everybody in the country and see what's actually going on. And if when you hear people talk, like, you would think nobody's allowed to smoke a real cigarette on stage anymore because it's banned in so many places. And then I did this poll, and about a quarter of the theater still smoke real cigarettes on stage. I'm like, okay, this is still going strong, I guess. And there's people who use like candles and pyro on stage, and then there's other people who they don't use anything. And so this is something like I've been able to discover, because now that the blog is a platform read by a lot of people, I could get responses from around the country and see what's going on. And so I'm not just like, making things up. I'm like, actually, according to my poll, people do smoke real cigarettes. But the main reason still remains, like I said before, just to be the blog that I've always wanted to read. So every time I sort of get, I want to stop blogging, or I'm tired of it, or I just want to, blog about whatever video game prop is popular and just start letting the ad money roll in. I think like, no, this is what I want to read is what the blog's been, and I should keep doing that. So like blogging versus social media. One of the reasons when I started the blogs were kind of a thing. Nowadays, it doesn't seem like there's many blogs anymore. People do everything on social media. And I think a lot of it has to do with Google Reader shutting down a few years ago, and all of a sudden there's no easy way for people to follow blogs. Now everybody gets their news from Facebook, from Twitter. Nobody's going like, where's the RSS feed? Let me subscribe to that and get that as a feed. So in some ways it's getting to be a little outdated. But I still do it because it lets me keep control of the content. I build the site, I write the stuff. If I want something up there, it's up there. If I don't want it up there, I don't put it up there. It's not going to change on me. I'm not going to log in and suddenly the buttons are somewhere else, or they start putting the posts in a different order depending on how they think I want to read them. So it gives me control. It gives me permanence, like a lot of social media. You see something, and then a few weeks later, you're like, what was that thing I saw? And you can't find it. You're like, was it on somebody's feed? Was it somewhere else? I can't search back that far. Where is it? The blog gives me some permanence, which is interesting because there's not much written about props. Some of my articles get cited in scholarly journals, so I have to keep it up there so that the link in the back of the journal, it still works after 5 or so years.
If I could comment, I've noticed that. Well, I've been trying to do this too.
Mm-hmm.
What I've found out is with social, maybe it's just me being old-fashioned, but what I've seen about the social media is just that it's about now, right now,
Yeah.
right now. If you read something today, that's great. But then at least those of us who have any kind of tradition for more than 5 years
Mm-hmm.
say, oh, I think I remember reading about that. You go to find it, not there.
Right.
It's ephemeral, it's gone.
Mm-hmm.
You might find somebody else's article on it, and it looks as though it's new.
Right.
But you didn't get to see the one that you remember. So you say permanence and searchable. That's a great way to have an index catalog of everything you've contributed.
Mm-hmm.
There might be some way of tying the two together so you can always get those who have some immediate
Right,
thing to
yeah.
actually get them to go back and refer to a blog.
Mm-hmm.
But my biggest question for you is, do you do this in a routine, disciplined way, or just whatever you feel like?
I try to do it in a routine, disciplined way. I started waking up earlier in the morning to kind of do all this, and it worked better before kids. It's getting back there, but if I have like 2 hours in the morning before I have to leave for work, then I have this time. I'll either work on the book or the blog or something like this. And in the beginning, I was doing 3 articles a week, so I was posting every Monday, Wednesday, Friday. And eventually that just got to be too much. In a way, I was kind of running out of things to talk about. It wasn't really I was running out of things to talk about. I was running out of easy things to talk about, and everything else I wanted to talk about would involve like spending a lot of money on materials and doing a whole video and doing all this. So then I'm down to twice a week, which has been working out mostly well. And I've gotten to the point where I don't beat myself up if I skip a week, but I've found that it's important to sort of stick with it because people kind of forget after a while. And there's a whole lot of, I'll find a blog about prop making or about theater or something. And then it's, the first post is like, welcome to my blog. The second post is, here's a project I did. The third post is 8 months later, sorry, I haven't been posting in a while. And then the blog is dead. So it's just this like whole mess of like dead blogs out there that started out promising, but now you have to try to find them. But I do try to tie it into social media. Because the things that are great about social media are it has a built-in audience. Like I would find somebody might like screenshot one of my posts and put it on Tumblr, and then have the little hearts of I guess it's likes, and it has like 800 likes. I'm like, 800? Where did those 800 people come from? Or like a Facebook post just starts getting shared and shared, and you can't even see who it's being shared with anymore. And the ability to spread is really great because everybody's on social media, and so every time they like something or read something or share something, then all their friends see that, which you don't get with the blog. You have somebody go in there, and that person sees it, and maybe they'll share it, but until it gets on the social media, it's a very individual thing. And then the interaction of social media. I have a commenting section on my blog, but it's nobody really uses it. But if you post something to social media, then somebody will comment, and then you could comment back, or you could tweet out a link, and somebody can comment and then comment back. And again, with the ability to spread, every time somebody comments, everybody else sees it. So, my next slide. Yes. I have my little flow chart then. So the blog, I set it up so every time I post, it automatically posts to Twitter. Here's my latest blog post. And then it automatically posts to the Facebook page for my book. Here's the latest blog post. And then every time I do a YouTube video, I post that to my blog, and I'll also sometimes post it to Twitter. So every time I put content on the blog, I'm then sharing it with social media, a lot of times just automatically. And that's like with Twitter, that's on top of just regular tweeting I do. So it's not just a Twitter feed of like new blog post, new blog post. It's every once in a while it'll be new blog posts because, again, like I was saying earlier with the blogging, people, now that Google Reader's not around, people don't have the list of blogs that they just go to the program and read, like emails. People want to go to Twitter, people want to go to Facebook to follow. And then one of the things that's still around is email. People still, and that's actually really successful. I set it up so it automatically sends an email out to anybody who's subscribed by email because for whatever reason, everybody checks their email, and some people just want to read it in their email, and then they'll email me back like, "Great article, Eric, thank you." And then all of that, I'll also every once in a while I'll send off to other sites. A lot of sites have like send your submission in for something cool. If I build a prop, like when I built the Legend of Zelda sword, I sent the link off. I think I sent it off. I sent it off to like Make Magazine because they take submissions. I sent it, and then there's a website that occasionally posts props of video game replicas. So
I got a question for you.
Sure.
What would be the quickest way to reference a picture of that online? Like I know some people who want us to use all this stuff. I know, so.
Like the reference image.
Like what? No, I said like to find out a picture of that item. Would I say Eric Hart Zelda sword or like?
Yeah, Eric Hart.
Would that probably pull up on images somewhere?
Yeah, it should show up. Hopefully. Yeah, Eric Hart prop Zelda sword. I'm creating good work? Are people responding to it? Is it helping people? Is it helping me? So the posting regularly and consistently is always important.
Eric Hart Zelda sword.
Oh,
Is that yours, the first one there?
Yeah.
It looks like yours. Oh, oops, sorry. The first one.
First one, yeah.
And then, yeah, the very first thing that comes up with Eric Hart Zelda sword is that one.
And then finding your niche. Mine is theatrical props. I do film props. Sometimes I talk about or television props or monster making or there's so many things that are really interesting. Model making, puppet building, that sort of thing. But I keep the focus on theatrical prop making. always return to that. And then writing what hasn't been written yet. So you just, if you want to start a blog about what you're interested in, you could look around and see what's been written already. And if you have something, even just like the slightest difference in what's out there, or a niche that hasn't been explored yet, that's you'll have success with that, because if you're the only person writing about it, then you'll eventually become the expert on it. And then just keeping in mind that your audience is built one person at a time. Like, even if you get a lot of shares, it's really about, if somebody is interested and sends an email to you, then you take the time to email them back and just like connect it on a one-on-one basis. And just a few months ago, I was reading a book by John Scalzi, a science fiction writer, who he has a couple dozen books out, and some of his books have been optioned for TV shows, and he has a multi-million-dollar book deal with Tor. But I really liked the book, so I found his email online, and I emailed him. And within a day, he responded basically to say thank you. So it's like, all right, if this guy can like respond to every fan who comes out, and surely like I can sit down and answer some of these emails that are piling up. So then, spreading the word with the blog. I've done Instructables, which is a great site. It has a great community. I've written some of the Instructables.
What's your Instructables name?
I can't remember. It's either Eric Hart.
I'll look you up.
Yeah. It was. This is actually one of the Instructables I did. It was a wooden ratchet maker, and I made it for a show. It got cut, so I kept it. This one actually, when I was, somebody from Scroll Saw magazine saw it on Instructables, and so then they asked me to do a magazine article for them, and so that's a case where it actually led into another paid writing gig. And then the Make blog is great too, because they're always showing off people's things. So you get you got a blog post, you take a few pictures of your project, you post it on there, and then they're sending people back to your blog and finding out about it. And that was really great with the book, because I was doing the blog, had a couple things featured on Make magazine. So then when it came time to get reviews for my book, somebody there already, they recognized my name, or I don't know if they recognized my name, but they could do a search and say like, oh, we featured you on our site. Okay, well, we'll review the book. And they ended up reviewing it and printing the review in the magazine, which has helped with the book sales. But like, there's a few other websites I've submitted to, all with varying levels of success. I mean, it's all free. It takes your time, but just sending your stuff out is basically free. And a lot of, what I discover is having a good picture, having a good video is usually the best way to get something shared a lot, especially if, you set up your blog so that when you hit the share button, the picture of the project shows up, because a lot of that's automatic. So I do WordPress. So you just get a plugin that's like, show your featured picture as when you share a link by Twitter or something like that. And then Facebook has their own separate thing that you have to add so that your picture shows up when you share a link. And then offline, there's a couple magazines that I've been able to write for because they found out about me through the blog, and they could see my writing, so they knew I could write, which is important for a magazine. And then, of course, the maker fairs are really good for spreading the word. People are coming up, you're building your audience one at a time. And then any other conference in your industry is really good too. And at this point, a lot of people, I'm at a conference and they see my name tag and they're like, oh, Eric Hart, the book, the blog. So getting to the book, This is the prop building guidebook, which came out in 2013, and it's a book about building props. So I had the idea for the book, and we went to a conference, and it was actually in Charlotte. It was a theater conference, and this is published by Focal Press, and they're an imprint that does photography how-to books and a lot of technical theater books, and a lot of people think of them as some of the better looking theater books, the more professional looking books. So they were at the top of the list of publishers to look at. So they had a booth at this conference. So with some product by my wife, I actually went up to talk to them, and I'm like, "Are you interested in a book about prop making?" And it was the person I talked to actually ended up being my editor for these past 4 or 5 years. But she's like, "Yes, we need a book about props. We don't know any prop makers who are literate and who can write. So maybe."
Unfortunate coincidence.
So she said, "Yeah, you could send in a proposal, and we'll see about getting it made." So that started off the timeline of getting the book printed. I don't know if this is typical of getting a book published by a publisher, or at least a technical book publisher, but this is what I went through and the timeline it took to get the book done. So the conference was right around here in 2011, and I sent off the proposal. And so I sent the proposal to my editor, and then she sent the proposal out to people in the industry with a questionnaire, should we publish this book? And some of the responses actually came back like, "Yes, I read Eric Hart's prop blog. It would be great to write a prop book." So having that audience built in was pretty great there. So then she made up her proposal to send to the marketing committee, and then when that passed, they sent it to the publishing committee. And so it was this multi-month process of just getting the proposal ready, and it was finally approved right in August. And so that's when I actually signed the contract. They sent me a contract. Manuscript is due on this day. It will have all this. This is the breakdown of what you will make, and this is the breakdown of what you're responsible for if you don't deliver, and all this sort of thing. And then that's when the writing began. So they broke down the manuscript into quarters and set up quarterly deadlines for me. So it was about 4 to 5 chapters of text every 2 months. With the first deadline was 3 months, just so I could kind of get myself organized and that sort of thing. So at this point, with the proposal, I had the basic idea of what the chapters were, the order of the book, and the sort of outline. And I had been just on my own, kind of chicken scratching at this book for a while. Like, oh, this is what I could write about. This is sort of rough kind of outline going into this, but then the writing process itself, I quickly realized, was a lot more intense than just sitting down and sketching out a few ideas, because it needed all the photographs, it needed tables, it needed diagrams. There's a lot of technical information in the book, and I realized I couldn't just make that up. So I have a tiny little table on 5 most common types of plaster and how fast they all dry. So I had to look up what are the 5 most common plasters, and then find their drying times and the mix ratios for all of them, and then put that all into a table. So this tiny little table that takes up that much room in the book took a week of research to do. And a lot of the book was like that, where a tiny chunk could take 3 weeks just to research every point, make sure I know everything I'm talking about is correct. And the intro where I just wax pontifically about props, that was the easiest part. I'm like, oh, making this great. So it was a year of taking pictures, writing the book, somewhere in the middle of that is when we moved to North Carolina. So there was a move in the middle of that, multi-state move. And while this was going on, they have a technical editor, which is another person in the field who reviews my manuscript and makes suggestions and corrections just on the technical information. Because they're a technical book publisher, this is something that they do. So after a few months, I start getting responses back from this woman. You know, this chapter should include this, which you didn't include. You don't need to include this. You should maybe switch the order of this. I don't think this is quite right. Why aren't you talking about this product? You know, why are you spending so much time talking about this? So that helped shape a lot of the book. And that's one of the great things about working with a publisher is that they have this whole team of people throughout the process all working on these different things so that I didn't have to, so that I had multiple eyes on the book. So it's not just me kind of like making something up and then all of a sudden everybody's like, well, I read it in Eric Hart's book, so it must be true. So that's going on at the same time. And somewhere around January, they had started mocking up the interior, so they had a graphic designer or something, a layout artist who picked the different fonts and all that sort of thing. And so I had to approve that. And then August of 2012, 1 year after the contract signed, was when the manuscript was due. So that was full text with all the edits. I had like a month of where I had submitted all the chapters, but then I could go back and edit them before submitting it. And then all the pictures, if I used anybody else's picture, I needed all the permissions for that. The tables, the preface, the introduction, the back notes, acknowledgments, all that sort of stuff. And then that's when they started the copy editing. And so the first time, for the first edition, it was a different company. The book publishing company sold and changed hands a few times. But when they were doing this book, they sent it off to India to be copy edited. And I didn't hear from them at all. For the second edition, which is coming out in a week, the copy editing process was done in-house. And so I had a daily conversation with the lady who was copy editing over the course of about a month. So she would read a copy, read a chapter, and then there's a lot of changes she could make on her own, but then she would send me questions of things like, sometimes you spell bandsaw with a space between band and saw, and sometimes you spell bandsaw as one word. How do you want it to be throughout the book? Like, I don't know. How do you spell bandsaw? This product doesn't actually exist. Do you want to change it? And that sort of thing. And it was great because however she worked, she could find in chapter 13, this paragraph is very similar to a paragraph in chapter 2. Do you want to get rid of one of them? I'm like, oh yeah, of course. So that really helped shape the kind of the grammar and everything. Yes.
You did the photography?
I did most of the photography. So a lot of this book is photographs I've taken over the years of my own projects. And then for the more specific how-to pictures, I would do a setup and photograph it. And then there are a couple pictures that I've gotten from other people just because with prop building, I'm not going to buy an oxyacetylene torch, learn how to use it, do a project, photograph it just for fun. So it's like, all right, you have some pictures of that. So yeah, I did a lot of the photography for this, which is also a lot of work. But I did, for a while, I had taken a break from theater for a few years, and I was working as a photographer. And one of my first gigs was photographing, it was medical devices. So it was a company that they were doing medical bags, like IV bags, and they were getting into the clamps and all. It was very, very industrial kind of technical stuff. But they wanted photographs, so I would take them back and learn how to light them. So I was practicing all this photographing and taking things. And So that came in real handy with then photographing props because it's a lot of the same like tiny things. Build up a little studio on your workbench. Right now I have a little foam core box, and I set the prop in and I put it on a background. I snap a picture. I think I have a slide coming up about the equipment that I use for photographing and video. But after the copy editing, they also made an index. That was a separate service they did. And then I had to proof the whole thing, so they send me the PDF, and I have to check through the whole thing again, make sure there's no errors, which for the first edition, again, they subcontracted it out, and I found like there were missing chunks of chapters that they had to put back in. It was a bit of a mess. But after all that, December of 2012, they finally sent it to the printers over in China. And then when they got one printed, they mailed it to the publisher. And so sometime in January, the publisher was like, "You got your book, it's real, it's a real thing." And then all the other copies then come over on a boat. So that's about a few weeks. I got my copies in January, and then the book actually wasn't published until March because there were delays with it getting to the warehouse and all that sort of thing. Very weird, but eventually it was published and it was a real thing. And
2 years.
2 years from the time that I sent the proposal to the time that it was real. And then 4 years later, they like to do a new edition every 4 years. So it was this time last year? No, this time 2 years ago that they said, "Are you ready to do a second edition?" I'm like, "Sure." So we went through the same process. August 2014, finished writing August 2015, no, 2016 must be. However the years work out. It's coming out February 17th. And I'm currently working on another book about all the prop tricks, electronics, pneumatics, all that sort of stuff. So I'm in the middle of that, writing-wise, and it's all due this August.
So are you making any money off the book?
The book surprisingly is more lucrative than the blogging. I think between the YouTube videos and the blog, it's been anywhere from $300 to $600 a year, and it costs I think about $100 a year to host it and the domain name and all that. So maybe, but the book, it's a small royalty, but it's so far, and for the time that you put into it, it doesn't seem like a lot, but it does end up being almost like a tax refund check every year. Every 6 months, it's like, oh, good, a little check. Right. Now we can pay off the HVAC. That'll take a while, but yeah, the photography. This was one of my setups back at our old place. We lived up Norfolk Langpo Mill Village, so I had a garage set up in the shop out there. Basically, I have my digital camera. I have a flash unit and then a remote cable, so I could set up the camera on a tripod and set up the flash and put it wherever. And I'll usually photograph in front of a window so I get daylight coming in, and then use the flash to fill in the other side. And then for the video, for the YouTube, which I started doing, at first I was doing with the iPhone video, which is fine. And then when my old camera broke, I got a few models up of the Nikon, which has the video, so now I do a video on this, which is great because then I'm not using my phone battery to film the video. And then I also have my audio recorder up here, which is recording right now. So I started out the first round of videos I did for the book, I was trying to narrate while I was demonstrating the prop. And that took forever because if I messed up the words, I would have to stop, and then I would have to reset the project and then start again. So multiple takes trying to do that. So then I made some more videos for the second edition of the book, and this time around I just I just film the process, and then I would record the narration after the fact of what I was doing, and then just add that over top, which ended up being a lot easier because then you could see the whole, like, this is the video, this is what you have to talk about. You're not, your hands aren't covered in plaster, and things aren't drying while you're trying to film, and then trying to start and stop a camera when you have plaster on your hands is always a little crazy. And then I'll also do videos of just specific props that I build. Like I did a video of the Zelda sword, I did a video of the Assassin's Creed axe, and what I'll do for that is I'll just film without narration and just do music, and so it's just kind of like a montage of the prop coming together. Because I kind of had that idea because I saw there's a lot of like Japanese cosplayers and Japanese prop makers, and a lot of times you don't know what's going on because you don't understand Japanese. So I figure if I do a video that doesn't have any talking, that anybody in the world can sort of understand what's going on. So that is with the video. And this time for the second edition, round 2, I tried to play it smart. So a single project, like I wanted to do a interesting prop for the cover, like change the cover, and so building that prop, I was able to make, I made like 2 videos out of that, and then while I was shooting the videos, I was also photographing, so those became the how-tos in the book, and then that became the cover photo of the book. So rather than doing a lot of setup on a single project for a single video, one project became all these things, and then of course a blog post about making the cover too. So it's just about, figuring out what I wanted at the end and all these things that I could turn into. But that's the end of my slideshow. So. Any questions? Yeah.
I don't get to the theater once. I saw a glass menagerie.
Oh, yeah.
In Greensboro.
Uh-huh.
Now, how do they know those things that were hanging down? Those glass or plastic or what?
Yeah, that was right before my time, but they got a glass blower to do all of that. Yeah. So we still have some around. They've been selling them off to patrons every once in a while, but so we still have a few things. But yeah.
What tool do you use the most in your shop?
Hmm?
What are the tools that you use most in your shop?
I use the table saw a lot. Yeah.
Well, now that we've got some lights, maybe you can point out some of the props that are good to see them.
Yeah, this is one of the projects. Another project that I did. I think I brought the one in the one day, but I built the model, and then making the mold was a video. So this is a matrix mold. So what it is, it's a thin silicone rubber shell, and then it's kept in place by this plaster. But the way you make it,
Like injection molding?
it's all gravity casting, so it's just pouring. But you cover this in clay and then build a wall around it, and you pour the plaster first. So then you have this basically like this, and there's a spout in the top, and then that's where you pour the silicone rubber, and it fills the gap in. Because the silicone rubber is $180 for 5 gallons, and plaster is $60 for 25 pounds. So this way you minimize the amount of silicone rubber, because this will capture all the detail, and since it's flexible, you can peel it away from the mold. So it's really good for mold making, but it's expensive, so you don't want to pour a giant block that's this size. So it was an interesting technique that I found. And then I did fiberglass, but with a water-based resin to make the actual piece, which I left at home. So that was another video. And so then Then I had 2 videos, the step-by-step guide for the book, and then a blog post of like summing up the whole process. And the prompt.
What were the Japanese looking things?
Oh, these? These are the seahorse. This is the cover to the book. He's kind of falling apart. This was one. This was just a prop I made up. I started out, I found a seahorse. I made a silicone mold of the seahorse. Cast them out 3 times. And then did a paper mache bowl with foam. And the idea, I was trying to go for, like with the cover for a prop building book, if you have a good prop, there, it just looks like an object. So, you know, you build a chair and you put it on the cover, and people are like, "Is this a book about chairs?" And so it's like, how do you show off the prop, and how do you show off the techniques you build? So I basically designed this piece to incorporate different techniques. You got foam carving, casting. On the bottom, this is actually a pastry press, so it's using found objects, wood, and then painting a faux marble technique. And I did it so that half the prop was finished and the other half showed off the materials that were being used. So the cover of the book then shows like you're transforming materials into something that looks like it's made something else. Yeah. Anything else?
What's the hardest project that someone's ever brought to you?
I had to do in Santa Fe. I had to do these flagpoles that were all on stage. I think there were 12 of them. And then at the very end, in this grand spectacle, flags suddenly appeared on all of them at the same time. And so it started out, it was these 2 aluminum tubes, one that fed inside the other, and they had slots in them. And as the outer one rolled and the slot came to the bottom, the flag was then free to come out. But because of they were custom flags, so they had to be printed, but the printing process was making them thicker, and they're all pulled by strings, and the crew couldn't time it together. So it ended up being every night of the performance you would get the report, and it would be like, flags 2 and 6 didn't fire tonight. Or flags 3 and 11 didn't fire tonight. Nobody noticed because it was this huge spectacle. And it was basically like this explosion of flags and confetti and cannon fire for like 2 seconds and then a blackout. But it was still, I was never able to solve how it was, and basically it was one of these projects where like, now I know exactly what to do the next time I build this, because I can't fix this one.
Anything else?
What's going to be new in the second edition? What's different or added from the first?
It has a lot more step-by-step techniques, like pictures showing step-by-step of certain techniques. It has a lot more, like there's a lot of thermoplastics that are coming out, like Warbler, Wonderflex, that sort of thing, so I have that in there. Updated brand names. I added metric equivalents to everything because it is published in England as well. So I converted everything to metric, and every measurement has that. And then just a whole lot of cleanup, and I think a few of the chapters were combined and reordered. And then for the first edition, there were 2 chapters that were on the webpage, like bonus chapters, and those are included in the second edition.
So where do we get it?
Oh, I was going to say, I like the binding.
I think they
I
kept
think
the
that's
binding,
great.
yeah. So, and the cover's different, but yeah. It could be bought. It's on Amazon, Barnes and Nobles, basically any of those places. The publisher is now Rutledge, so you go to the Rutledge website. I think if you still search for Focal Press, it'll redirect there. or to Taylor Francis, which it was for a while.
And it'll be available next week.
It should. They said it's looking like February 17th.
I was talking about Instructables. It's my favorite website.
Yeah.
It's, probably 15 years ago now. I put one on there. It's about screensavers. For telephones, old phones, older phones. I still got one. And just a big place to take pictures, each step.
It's very cool.
Yeah, we got pretty good. I checked them by accident. Got there.